You are listening to the Examine Life with Bram Levinson. So, when I was on my way back home from Greece in Athens at the airport, I overheard a conversation that these two women were having a couple of seats away from me at the gate for the flight. And they were talking about celebrities. They were talking about who was breaking up with who and who was getting into a relationship with who and talking about people they didn't know, and they were talking about these people as if not only did they know them, but they had the right to know what was going on with their lives. And they were so in it. They were so caught up in the energy of talking about these people, and it really stayed with me. I was raised, in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s, and it was it was very much of a tabloid culture. Celebrities at that time anyway were defining celebrity. They were defining celebrity on a level that hadn't really been defined before. It was like, an era of abundance and muchness and a lot of money and a lot of glitz and a lot of glamour and a lot of hair and a lot of makeup. And so I remember, being constantly surrounded by like People magazine and National Enquirer and all the tabloids, really. And listen, sometimes I bought them, sometimes I was fully into them, and I remember that it stopped. I stopped getting into them in, I want to say, 1989. In 1989, I went for the summer on this sort of traveling camp kind of expedition where for some of the nights that, first of all, I was in a group, but, for some of the nights that our group was traveling, some of the nights we would be in a hotel, some of the nights we would be camping out, and it was a great experience. And I'll never forget, one day we were on the bus, and one of the other kids who was on the trip with me ran up to me and said, "Oh, did you hear the news?" and started telling me about, like, I don't know, something that was happening with two other people who were in the group. And the energy that came off of him, I found it so abrasive and I found it so aggressive. And I mean, listen, I'm by nature what psychologists would refer to as a high reactive. I don't like a lot of like stimuli. I like quiet and I like calm. And so the fact that he ran up to me like that and just said, "Did you hear this?" And then he like blurted it out already was a little bit of an assault for me. But I also really remember being highly irritated by the fact that he was talking about other people in a way that sort of sensationalized whatever they were going through, whatever their experience was. And obviously I couldn't express it the way I just did back then, but it bothered me. It bothered me. And I just thought, whatever they're doing is none of your business. And it's certainly none of my business. I don't care about it. And I'll never forget, that was when I stopped sort of buying into tabloid culture and celebrity culture and just realizing that, there's no point to doing it. There's no point to talking about other people. And it has stayed with me, this idea of gossip and of focusing on other people's existences. I mean, I just right now, I didn't want to buy a tabloid or a magazine like that to give you examples of what they're currently reporting on because I don't want to support them. And then I went onto one of their websites and thought, oh, I've just, this is the modern day version of support. It's a click. I just clicked on their website. But nonetheless, the stories they haven't changed. It's about who's sleeping with who and who's breaking up with who and whose teeth are whiter and who wore it best and who's laughing at who. And it's just so stupid. I just find it so silly. I find it inane. And listen, I understand that there's serious judgment here, but I believe that there are certain ways that we are unconsciously spending our time that are a waste of time. And I think this is one of them. Why are we focused on what other people are doing? Why do we feel the need to know whose marriage is failing or who's dating whom, what that person wore or what that person ate? Why do we even care? Many of us learn from the world around us. And on an unconscious level, we're seeking inspiration from that world around us. When we find it, right, from other people's behaviors, from the examples that other people are setting, we learn from it. We learn from that example. We sometimes share that example. We talk about it. Maybe it inspires us to adopt new thought and behavioral patterns and become, clearer, higher versions of ourselves. But when we don't find it, right? When we find the opposite of that inspiration that we're looking for, when we find the sensational or the harmful or like bad behavior, people just behaving horribly, or we simply find whatever elicits negative reactions from us, we also learn from that. We share it. We adopt new thought and behavioral patterns, but we don't become clearer, higher versions of ourselves because we don't ask ourselves why the negative reaction has arisen, why we have reacted negatively to what we found that wasn't what we wanted. We by default shift the negative reaction so that we're not under the influence of the sensations that it has elicited. So we learn from the world around us. Sometimes we're going to see things that inspire us to do better, say better, talk better, be better. Sometimes we're going to see stuff that really doesn't sit well with us. And because it doesn't sit well with us, and because our natural state is not to be in the presence of discomfort, we will shift that discomfort. Okay, so we will learn from it, I suppose, but we will share it. We'll adopt new thought and behavioral patterns because we need to get rid of it. We need to unburden ourselves from the weight of whatever that is. We're encouraged to look at each other, and we're encouraged to judge each other in today's society. That is misstep number one. For those, I think, who are truly awake in the world and in their own lives, what other people are doing on their path is of little to no interest because they understand that every single one of us is on an individual journey, and that to judge someone else, to talk shit about someone else, is to add to the suffering that they already have, or that they are having, or that they had, or that they will experience at some point on their own journey. Suffering is the greatest of equalizers. It doesn't matter who you are. It doesn't matter what God you pray to. It doesn't matter how much money or abundance you have, or what language you speak, or where you live. Everyone experiences suffering and the fallout from it, the recovery from it, if we're lucky enough to recover from it. So when we judge anyone, seen through a spiritual lens, we are adding willingly and voluntarily to the suffering that that person will experience in his or her own lifetime. We harm the other person through the gossip that we produce about them, and we add to their suffering. This is misstep number one. Knowing that most people make that misstep and don't think twice about it leads us to misstep number two, allowing the judgment to harm the judge. Think about it. When you judge someone else's actions, who suffers? Does the person who is being judged suffer? Does that person even know that he or she is being judged? No. That person continues on his or her own path, rightfully oblivious to the opinions of others and the gossip that's occurring. And know this, by the way, judgment is based in opinion. And opinion is, after all is said and done, irrelevant and worthless. We may have been tricked into thinking that our opinions are of value because politicians and corporations want to hear them to manipulate our own patterns of behavior, but ultimately our opinions mean absolutely nothing, and they are rarely helpful. It is just noise being sent out into the ether. Social media is everyone talking and no one listening, and it is simply the shifting of opinion. So someone being judged, being targeted by the opinions of others, doesn't know that she or he is being targeted and continues just living life, right? The one who judges, however, is the one who suffers, because that opinion, that judgment about someone else has elicited a physiological response. Blood pressure rises, tension starts to land in the body, indignation, moral righteousness manifests, and boom, the judge becomes the punished. Every moment we believe we know what's better for someone else, every time we pass judgment on the way someone else is navigating his or her own experience of life, we invite suffering into our own equation. Because ultimately, on a physiological level, we are the ones who exhibit a response to whatever has instigated the urge to gossip and to talk about someone else and to judge. Now, knowing that most people make that misstep and don't think twice about it leads us to misstep number 3. Spreading the poison of gossip out into the world, knowing that it self-perpetuates. We know that kindness begets kindness. And we know that lies beget lies. We know that anger begets anger. We know that gossip begets gossip. So we launch that gossip out into the world, and by doing so, we not only condone gossiping, but we amplify the gossip. We amplify its energy. We plant seeds in the world, which will grow into more gossip and more rumors and allow other people to do the same thing, to talk shit about other people. We will allow more harm to be done to people. In some cases, people we don't know and we will never meet, like celebrities. We plant the seeds of harm and we walk away. We don't even realize that they're going to grow into the forest of gossip that breeds tabloid culture, that allows others to make financial fortunes by talking shit about the lives of those who dare to dream big, who dare to live bigger, and that ultimately leads to those carrying the weight of the judgments about themselves made by other people to suffer. And in some cases fall into addiction, fall into shame, fall into erratic behavior, and sometimes self-harm and suicide. When we talk shit about other people, we are part of a problem. We are part of a problem that most would identify as changeable, a problem that is unnecessary. But without self-awareness, without awareness of how each of us contributes to the energy of gossip, we cannot and we won't change one bit of it. I want you to consider that many people believe the death of Princess Diana to be down to the fact that we went out and bought the magazines, paid attention to the television shows, that paid these celebrity photographers and paparazzi to go out and pursue her so doggedly that her car ended up crashing because they couldn't get away from, this barrage of motorcycles and the cameraman on those motorcycles trying to just get the image, trying to get the picture. I want you to consider that what we do on a micro level affects on the macro level in ways that we're not even being encouraged to understand. Now, judgment and gossip occur in the realm of the observer. You are the observer. All the stories you have about other people exist in your mind. They don't exist outside of you. You may think that the stories are true, and by the way, most gossip is based in falsehood and rumor, but all the stories you have about other people exist in your mind. They do not exist outside of it. If life is truly a dream, a projection of each one of our minds, then gossip exists to awaken us to the aspects of that dream that ruin it, that make the dream less pleasant, that we can actually influence and alter to make the dreams, aspects that we can actually influence and alter to make the dream, the experience of life, more of what we want it to be. Gossiping, I think, is for tiny little minds. It's for small minds. It's for smaller mouths spewing poison. It says little to nothing about the object or the quarry of the gossip. It says everything about the source of it. You are not here to be small. You are not here to spew hate and bullshit and lies and poison into the world. You are not here to spend the non-renewable resource of time hating or passing judgment and inviting in your own suffering under the guise of thinking you know what's better for someone else than they do. Or under the guise of thinking that, it's okay to talk about what someone else is doing and to judge them and to criticize them or to approve of what they're doing. Who are you? Who are we? We do not have the right to permit someone else to live their life the way they want to live it. The same way we wouldn't want someone else to tell us to live our life the way they think we should live it. You are here, we are all here, to look at the aspects of this experience of life that drag us down into the depths of suffering and misery and move around them. We are meant to move in the opposite direction, the direction of wishing each other well on this journey, this individualistic journey. We are meant to encourage each other and be happy and compassionate for each other. We're meant to spend as little time in the energies of hate and anger and as much time as possible in the energies of contentment and love. We're meant to move away from the I and the me and shift closer to the us and the we. This is only going to happen when we understand this experience of life a little better and we know that what someone else is doing is none of our business. There's a page that I wrote in my second book, A Year in the Light. I'm going to read it to you right now. Someone else's weight is none of your business. Someone else's relationship status is none of your business. What their lover bought them for Valentine's Day is none of your business. What they are eating for dinner is none of your business. What he said about her, what she heard from him, what he saw that night, what she wore to work, the cigarette that one smoked, the money the other one spent, all of it, none of your business. What is your business? Prioritizing moments of happiness and fulfillment in your own life. The more time you spend judging, coveting, assessing and comparing, the more you are A, operating from the belief that your happiness is proportional to the misery of others, and B, buying into the illusion that your happiness will somehow be a result of paying attention to external factors. Happiness and fulfillment manifest by paying attention to what comes from within, not from without. We must collectively wake up from this epidemic of comparing ourselves to others. We must realize that if we were already fulfilled and content, we wouldn't give a second thought to anyone else's actions. We would understand that everyone is on their own path, doing their best. We would wish them well and get on with our lives. Now, another page from this book, A Year in the Light. Gossip destroys and exists solely in the realm of the observer. One who gets involved, who sets a course steeped in intention and devotion, has no time for anything other than creation and action. People who sit on the sidelines criticizing those bold enough to ignite their dharma into manifest being only serve to tear down, to belittle, to annihilate, all for the sake of justifying their fear-based inaction. Recognize the urge to gossip as stemming from your own fear of soaring. Encourage those whose feet have already left the ground, and without overthinking or overanalyzing, begin taking the steps that will quicken into the pace that will initiate your takeoff. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that when we talk about other people, it makes us feel better about potentially what is not going on the way we want it to go on in our own lives. So listen, if time is a non-renewable resource, stop paying attention to what other people are doing. Stop thinking that you know what's better for them, and start looking, spend that time, spend that energy looking inwards, looking at what you need. Be brave, be courageous, do what you need to do. Trust me, when you do, I'm sure that there are going to be people there will be people who will start talking about you and who will create all kinds of stories around you. And then you'll know exactly what was happening when you were talking about other people, creating all of these sidelines and side stories that were not based in truth, but that somehow helped you feel better about what was going on with you, because you could somehow relate to what was going on with them, because you brought them down to the level where you could relate. We are not meant to spend our time being little. And we're not meant to spend our time spewing poison and talking about other people and trying to just, even out the playing field. There are people out there who are meant to inspire us to do better, to be better, to jump beyond ourselves. So jump beyond yourself. But I want you to check yourself. Every time you feel the urge to move towards, what are they doing? Or to get involved in somebody else's business, or to talk about them, or to judge them, I want you to check yourself and go, oh, I'm doing it. I don't need to do this. Okay, what else can I do now? I really want you to give this a good think, because this happens to every single one of us in our lives at some point. There is an opening verse from the Bhagavad Gita that I've referred to a lot. Bhagavad Gita being a Hindu epic, part of the canon of scriptures in Hinduism. And I'm paraphrasing. But the story is a boy who's going to war. He doesn't want to go to war, and he's in a chariot with God, and God is about to tell him all the reasons why he needs to go to war, why he needs to fight in this battle. And in the beginning, this boy gives him all the reasons why he shouldn't fight, and he really pulls stuff out of nowhere. He starts to justify inaction. And the first line, and again, I'm really paraphrasing because I don't have it in front of me, and I probably should have gotten in front of me for this podcast, but I didn't. The first line that is spoken to this boy, Arjuna, by Krishna, God as Krishna, essentially, Krishna says to him, "Stand up, scorcher of foes." From whence does this cowardly dejection arise? He's basically saying, where is this cowardice coming from? Stand up and stand up. Be powerful. Be potent. Be better. Be a higher version of you. And I would pass that on to not only all of you listening, but to myself. We need to stand up. We need to be better versions of ourselves. And we need to check ourselves when our own fear and our own cowardice and our own envy and our own jealousy and our own shame motivate us to start bringing other people down. We need to be uplifting other people. We need to be cooperative and collaborative. We cannot add to the already stifling burden of suffering that everyone is carrying by criticizing them, by talking about them, by gossiping about them. Think about it. I'll see you later. This has been the Examine Life with Bram Levinson.